All right, let's do this. Another jam-packed episode. Super jam-packed. We're going to have to move fast with this incredible works here. Artist Journal, July 20th, 2023, broadcasting from the editor's desk on the pirate ship of the mind, deep in inner space in Berlin, Germany. My name is Adrian Pocobelli, and I welcome you back. And you know, the first thought that came into my head when I saw this, I thought of, actually two people sent it to me. Check this out. And the first thought that came into my head after watching this was MoMA 2.0, as Eile puts it. Sometimes she collects works, and I think she calls it MoMA 2.0. And that's what I thought. That's what I was thinking as I was watching this. So let me get you ready here. It's a minute and a half. Ed's on the Pixel Network. Usually there's a 30-second copyright thing. I hope Ed's okay with this. If not, we will strike this video from the record, but we shall. You just have to see this. Just a stunning work by Ed Merola here. And, I mean, what do you say? Again, MoMA 2.0 is how that is all I think when I'm watching this incredible, epic work. Now, this is part of the digitally native, also digitally naive series curated by Unknown Collector on Object One. Let me just stop that there. So the artist is dreaming. I assume a bit of a play on The Artist is Present by Marina Abramovic. Again, that very famous performance art exhibition at MoMA, maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. Sound and Pixel 2023, please be quiet. Hilarious. So it's going to be fascinating to see how much these go for, this whole curation here. And here's Ed Merola on Twitter. Speaking of the Pixel Network, I still need to set up that page. Have you seen the Pixel Art Merola Style Masterclass series? In episode 6, I sampled a Gauguin to make some nonsense oniric. This is I believe this is the word for dreaming, another word for dreaming. Nonsense oniric artwork. Need a link, and then here is a few highlights. So again, using Gauguin to sample Gauguin, using Gauguin to create a painting out of a sampled, making a brush out of sampled Gauguin. I mean, it's brilliant, and you can actually watch him do that. So incredibly cool here from Ed Merola. And again, big thank you to Unknown Collector and everybody who showed up. 236 tuning in so far. I mean, that's really great. And it was an awesome conversation. We could have went for another 2 hours. But unfortunately, I'm moving apartments right now, and literally the moving truck showed up after 90 minutes. So I had to go. My friend Bob with his moving van that he rented, which worked out beautifully. But yeah, it's a quick show note. I may not be here tomorrow, as usual on Fridays, because I may just have too much to do with moving. As you all know, it's a huge job, and I give over the keys on Sunday. So new set is coming in the background here. Big thank you to Unknown Collector and everybody who spoke and showed up. It's on my Twitter feed. If you're looking for it, I'll upload it hopefully in the next day or two. And Unknown Collector's curation is here. So you can find it on Object 1, and here are the works. So a few familiar artists here. This one, Nuve 1914, I'm not sure I've seen. We're going to look at a few of these works. We can't look at all of them in this episode, but I kind of spread them through this episode. Françoise Gamma with a new work, pretty cool. Marcelo Pinel, Ed Marola with that work we just looked at. Igor Alves, who I've never seen before, and Venta with a really great work. We're going to look at that one. Sumi Reyusi with an interesting work. RJ, Dan Control. And so a really nice just curation here. Graphica, Martin Brook, Formless, Rennie Fish, who I actually missed. I didn't actually see that the first time through. Yuri J, Milaya, Parsa Mostigin, and Rakano. So just a beautiful lineup here. It's going to be fascinating to see how much these go for. When you see them all together, you just see the value. That Dan Control. We're going to take a look at that one too. Continuing on, comments here. A lot of comments on that last episode, A New Aesthetic. And I was saying in the space, like, it's not like I plan out. I sometimes have thoughts of things I'm thinking about before I start a show, and sometimes I'll have thoughts ahead of time, but what's so interesting for me, and one of the great pleasures of this show, is how many ideas come out in the conversation itself. Me reading the comments and then having thoughts out loud. This was super interesting. I got a good response here. Lord Misfit, Uxine is on another level. The show is on another level. Thank you. So many incredible artists. I agree. I'm kind of back to this MoMA 2.0 idea. Thank you for doing this. You're more than welcome, Lord Misfit. Retro Manny, when I saw the Strange Thing in Uxine collab, it just hit me. This digital blockchain art revolution is unstoppable. Great show. Thank you, Manny. Demon Ego. Thank you again, my friend. And there's a quote from the show here. I was describing Demon Ego as a very kind of free-spirited artist here. That's exactly the definition I want to be and be called that way. You may be the person who best describes my art and my journey to date. Well, that's really nice to hear. I mean, Demon Ego is a very prominent artist in the space, so that's great to hear. DJ Kuro, thank you for showing my new glitch art. Another great episode. Thank you. And Score, thank you so much for reviewing VV. Rennie Fish let me know about this. Happy to see so many friends reviewed here. This is Smonter. Happy to be among the first 1,000 followers of the channel. Cool artwork as always. I almost forgot to mention, like that, Ed Marola put out a pirate ship, a tribute to the 200 episodes, the 200th episode. And I'm calling those, I don't know if anything will happen, zero promises on that, but I'm calling that the ticket to the pirate ship. I don't know if anything will ever happen, zero promises on that, but just so you know, in Ed Marola, we're selling them for a Tezos each, and they're in Ed Marola's thing. So anyways, great to see you in the first 1,000. Smonter, and love the work you're putting out. Nuggeteer, this was funny. I meant it in a totally loving and endearing way, was pumped for it. Yeah, awesome. As he wrote in the comment for the Uxine Strange Thing work, Pocobelli is probably going to start with this. Yeah, and I took it as totally loving and endearing, so I totally took it that way, Nuggeteer. I thought that was hilarious. Kyle Flemmer, excellent lineup of art. You're welcome. Primitive Intel, soon I will release a new series of art, and I will definitely get you to review it, get to you in the review. Yeah, feel free to send a link again. And even if you've sent something before, Twitter messages are tricky, so feel free to remind me. And I keep tabs. I read the messages and usually respond. Almost always, actually. 79522. Aguante El Trash, the most authentic artist movement I've seen in Tezos. Gifization, now I stole this word in my life dictionary. Uxine, Spongle is very Tezos-ish. I actually totally agree. And yeah, I mean, Simon Posford, again, who is Hallucinogen. I think the first album, there was Raja Ram involved, who's the guy who started Tip Records. So yeah, Spongle, yeah, very grassroots. That whole scene was just like people like this Tezos scene, starting stuff up, doing it themselves, a very do-it-yourself culture. Stippen Pixel, thanks, you're welcome. Ed Marola, a few androids, and also Alaus Hip Hop, incredible stuff from Strangely and Uxing. Yeah, that work really resonated with people. It was beautiful, as we see there. This I had to show. This is hilarious. Check this out. So this is from yesterday's show, and I'll show you my favorite part. This part right here. I love that. So, loving all of this. This is, and a little window into the process here too. We're going to look at another work by Bosco Gracias. Only has, by the way, 116 followers. So you show Bosque Gracias some love. We're going to see another gorgeous artwork by him in this episode. So anyway, big shout out to the fam over there in, I believe, Argentina. Little cakes, and check this out. I mean, this looks like early Devo or Residence or something. And within the same thought about range, we're discussing, doing different things, different mediums. I want to share these images of me during a performance tour I did with some friends that I partially used as a reference for the Blacklight Rave pieces you shared on the show. Thank you. So here is a quick look. So, I mean, again, totally underground looking scene here. Just very cool. So look at all this. Hilarious. So thank you for sharing. And there's Stiffen Pixel. Little love this range. How nice that my writings have been able to reach you. That photo has history. Oh, maybe that was Stiffen Pixel. Stiffen Pixel wrote in, yes. So anyway, all to say, thank you for the comments, everybody. And big, massive thank you to Santiago. Pirate Ship in Our Mind, tribute to Adrian Pocobelli and to Artist Journal, not a news show. Thank you for all your love for this art scene. And thank you, Santiago. Look at how beautiful this is. Now, the colors especially resonated with me. And I was like, these colors are beautiful. And I think I know why they resonate with me, because then I started putting two and two together, because he's using in another work, which we're going to see, space Lego as a sample, or maybe AI space Lego. And here you can almost see the little spacemen, maybe AI versions, I'm guessing. But this palette screams like 1977 or 1981 instructions or something. So I think that might be part of the reason, the palette. Anyways, it's a beautiful work, and big, massive thank you for this gorgeous one-of-one Santiago SDXL Lego, Aseprite, and Inkscape. Super cool. And this was super interesting. Sabato, glitching is a way to unlock alternative narratives from popular media. I think this is like I just think this is a profound, and it's, I think all glitch people would, and I think non-glitch people, most people would agree with it, but I think it's a really interesting statement to highlight. It's a way to unlock alternative narratives from popular media, which I think is one of the reasons we might say glitch has a very important place in, contemporary art making. I mean, how else would you get Barbie to learn some samba steps? So we're going to look at a few of these gorgeous works here. Gorgeously glitched works by Sabato in this episode. Here's the first, and I was thrilled to be able to pick up one of this very low edition for Sabato, edition of 8. I picked up one for 29. Thrilled, cover girl, and it kind of reminded me of Human Kernel a little bit. This idea of, I mean, this is not an uncommon technique, which is to carve out outlines and then to kind of fill in those outlines with different kind of patterning. We're probably going to see it 2 or 3 times this episode. And it seems like that's what's going on here. And I'm starting to wonder if Sabato is taking different glitches and then putting them together in Photoshop, because here it looks like a certain kind of glitch within the head, right? But it's a different kind of glitch here. And did he just get the magical glitch by, using one of these ROM corruptors? Or, that would be incredible. Or is this being brought into Photoshop, and then different glitches are now being kind of superimposed together? It's being edited, and you're getting astonishing results like this. Carving out masks here, or outlines. Beautiful. And, I didn't even know there was a Barbie movie until I started seeing stuff on Twitter that the artists were doing. And I love this visual commentary. I mean, Sabato first started making Barbie works, I guess, in 2016, 2017, but now is returning, Barbie World Revisited, with this awesome, awesome series, and continues to push things forward here. Just really nice piece. Now on secondary for 57 Tezos. And here's one I missed. Life's a Beach and Then You Die. Just another really cool work. You wouldn't know it's part of Barbie. You might guess from the color, but there's no obvious thing. But again, just, and I see like this slower version background with the faster moving foreground, the beach. And it makes me wonder again, is Sabato doing extra editing in Photoshop, which would be pretty rad if that's what's going on here. Maybe that's just how the game is, but it's starting to look like extra editing. It's very cool. Here's another one, Learning to Samba, putting out a lot of work. And again, nice low editions, edition of 10, selling for 8 Tezos. This is the one we saw in the tweet there. And just again, gorgeous glitching here. Just gorgeous kind of digital noise down here. Nice even up here at the pixelation, the dark pink on the lighter pink. Barbie practicing her samba. I mean, awesome. Here's Silva Santu's, more glitch ROMs, Overworld. So last time we saw the waterfall that was cascading down and the whole image was moving down. This is the opposite direction, really, moving up. And we see it here with Overworld and just nice big squares. And I love that starting area with the trees here. So interesting from Silva Santu's, 4 Tezos on secondary, edition of 22. Very nice work. Haiti Rocket, Car OK. And so another cool glitch ROM. And this looks like one of those games that I would play in the arcade back when I was in high school, where mine was like with monster trucks and you get the nitro, but I remember this kind of UI for gameplay. Anyways, very cool work here. And also a low edition of 11 for Haiti Rocket, pretty reasonable price. Mick Renders with a very minimal kind of glitch ROM. Don't pull the cartridge 04. So again, looking like, I think it has extra processing. I think it mentioned After Effects there, or maybe there's some analog video. So very minimal, but pretty cool. Collected from physical hardware glitches on an NES clone console, exported in After Effects, GIF and Photoshop. Just very cool, very affordable. A Tezos 88, only an edition of 15. Continuing on, I picked this up. This was 45 Tezos Rustic Digital Art. It is a 1 of 1. And you go, okay, cool, abstract, but then you open it big and check this out. I thought this was brilliant. So Rustic Digital Art with a super interesting abstract really complements those Santiago works really nicely, doesn't it? So I thought, and it changes all over. It looks like the whole thing was kind of brushed through, and you see a little Luigi figure. You see like the duck hunt. I just thought this was brilliant. Kind of we're back to this video games kind of meets high art, conflation or juxtaposition, and there's the duck hunt, or, I guess that's a rangefinder or target. Very interesting work. It looks like Tetris blocks. I thought this was very, very interesting, and so I was thrilled to pick it up. Human Kernel, and I believe Human Kernel sent this out to me as well. So anyway, cool work here. Another kind of, Santiago abstract. Often Human Kernel plays with the PFP, the profile picture here. So kind of a portrait here, seemingly in the middle, and maybe another person here. Edition of 3, I Love You, Dinny. Now on secondary for 1,000. Human Kernel. This one went for, I think, only for 14 Tezos to Icaro. So good deal there for a 1 of 1 of this series here. And again, looks like a really roughly, maybe there's a head there in the middle. Okay, just call me. We're all going to make it Monday, baby. Interesting. Continuing on. And here, more Space Lego. So this is Santiago, Space Lego Goblin Core, End of Time. So here we seem to see the Goblin Core on the right and the Space Lego on the left. So this looks like AI Space Lego, because I actually have done on Midjourney, I think it was, classic Space Lego. It starts to look like this. So I think that's what's going on here. I could be wrong. AI Lego, exactly, and A-Sprite. So super interesting, this export into A-Sprite for the dithering. Fascinating. At auction for 75 Tezos, edition of 1. And another really interesting work by Santiago, a minimal work here. And interesting, again, this looks like AI, but I'm not sure. Inkscape PNG. So maybe no AI. Interesting how we have this kind of contrast to the hard edge kind of pixelation here with this kind of soft edge kind of vector, pixelation, for lack of a better word, this rounded pixelation. Very interesting piece. Nice contrast to kind of monochromatic on top with some almost, not RGB, but some primary colors underneath. Just kind of nice. Very nice piece. Love the negative space. Big fan of this negative space thing. Edition of 1, accepted offer to EdgeQ for 45 Tezos. Shout out to EdgeQ. Pamelo Cerrone. Regret, all rights reserved. I love that. Edition of 1, only 25 Tezos. Continuing these big chunky pixels. And part of what I really like about what Pamelo is doing is playing with what look like almost different sized pixels all in one canvas here. Because these look like really big squares here and then smaller ones. So all to say, just very interesting semi-abstract works with kind of a deep title, but then kind of undermined with the all rights reserved. Interesting work for 25 Tezos. Haiti Rocket, again, dope disc. So a classic imagery from Haiti Rocket, the retro 3.5-inch disc, and here with dope put on top. So just signature work here from Haiti Rocket, and then they are all kind of flowing through, just making something of it. Just very cool. Dope Disc 3.1. Here's Dope Disc 0. Won't live it on too long because of the flash, but just kind of cool. Almost like an icon, the bottom left, and just using 1. Kind of an example there of how digital art, unlike physical art, can use one element, repeat it. We see it with Dan Control, repeat it endlessly, and make several artworks out of one kind of composition. And that's just very interesting, and another contrast, another way that digital art is different from physical art. Because, I mean, screen printing was in between, where all of a sudden you could repeat, but it wouldn't be an exact repetition, but you might see screen printing, perhaps, as a transition where we saw Warhol repeating, right? So there's something very Warholian, one could argue. Another way that Warhol was ahead of his time. There's something very Warholian about this repetition. Continuing on, Lorna Mills with a nature type work. It looks like kind of an out of control basil plant here, I'm assuming, or maybe some kind of weird lettuce here. So just more weirdness from Lorna Mills. Big shout out to Lorna Mills, and cool color here too. Love the nature works. Kodak, almost like Kodak film. Edition of 32 for 15 Tezos, and there are only 7 left. Actually, 27 left. More cool work here. And look at this stunner by Element Lee, Residence. So just another super cool signature minimal pixel artwork by Element Lee. And again, it looks like here, I mean, it looks like the interior over here. I mean, here's someone, again, it's like the interior has been reduced to just its basic geometry, to almost half-quote Ballard. You know, the interior of an apartment and the postures of our bodies reduced to, you know, mathematical, geometric, shapes and, you know, signs, and you almost just see it just reduced to your geometry. And here, I can't tell if that's a person, but just very, very cool work. And you gotta love like these random almost pixels here, and almost like this, you know, this wild work here. I mean, it looks like a hill here with a gate. Like, is this a dream? Is this just outside? Is this the inside of the residence? Just interesting. And finally, the color. This beautiful, you know, light beige on the dark beige. Just a lot of very, you know, I don't want to, like, semi-outrageous decisions here. Just a lot of very creative decisions. Let's call it that. Edition of 20 for 6 Tezos, 16 left. Nice, small, 256 pixel work. Back to Barbie with PP Universal, who is kind of becoming a regular on the show here. Barbie Planes only passes one time in your whole life. Kind of has a Theodore tugboat kind of look, like a plane with a face. And again, playing with outlines, as we were just discussing in that Sabato piece, and filling the outlines with just different kinds of patterning or texture. And this is what we see here. It's a pretty powerful technique. And there the Barbie logo is in the background here, just repeated, maybe turned into a brush, you know, and also here, just really interesting work from PP Universal again. Edition of 5 for 6 Tezos. And there is one left. And Myth with a really nice work here. Interesting composition, almost that sleeping figure at the bottom, you know, and this is the narrative of that person's life, almost very surrealistically. And kind of, there's something very almost Dali-esque about Myth's work, in the sense that it's these, you know, these almost very symbolic landscapes where, it's just these irrational landscapes with just all this kind of full of meaning, like a dream. And you're just, the zebra, the tree, again, very Delinean. And it sort of reminds me of The Unspeakable Confessions. Salvador Dali wrote about 4 or 5 books, as far as I understand. The Secret Life of Salvador Dali was the first, then Diary of a Genius in 1951, and I think it was 51. And then also later, The Unspeakable Confessions. Those are 3 that I remember off the top of my head. And in The Unspeakable Confessions, he has this one line: if you want to understand my art, decode, 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 which he put in capital letters. And that is, again, I'm kind of back to myth here, that that is what all of this kind of imagery reminds me of. It's just something to decode. So very cool. And here's the sleeping, what looks like this is the story of that person's life here, sleeping with this very minimal, background here, almost semi-abstract. Very interesting work from the myth. These are 40 Tezos each, I think, minimum offer, and they are coming in. So for this low edition of 10, this beautiful painting by the myth. Continuing on, Dan Control. This is brilliant and witty as usual, as we've come to expect from Dan Control, and taking the idea of these kind of cartoon figures and smashing them together, but then not stopping there, adding beer bottles, soda cans, the Virgin Mary, and all sorts of things. And again, just coming with this kind of very whimsical, fun work. Again, this is in Unknown Collector's digital native curation that is on Object One. So again, it's going to be fascinating to see what these go for. 14N6, who I'm starting to think might be Wasteman Goldminovich, because when I saw this painted phone here, I started to see Wasteman style, the FOC chair. So again, we think of Van Gogh here, a play on Van Gogh's chair, but instead of a pipe, I think was on the original, we have a phone with someone calling, and then there you have a shotgun, failed artist, so maybe a big clue, a pirate flag, and there's a Pepe. That looks like the cast of the failed artist. So the repaired lawn chair there, the modern take. So another great work by 14N6. And here is Wasteman Goldminovich, The Hangover, with, again, this kind of KFC Ronald McDonald guy. It looks like the Colonel on top, but then you have the Ronald McDonald stripes, but instead they're black. Almost like a prison inmate here, and a cigarette, and this great pink background, and orange wild chair, and I don't know if that's a muffin on the front or what that is, and then, scuba gear, I don't know. And there is the bottle, the culprit, at 110% alcohol. That is wild. So 3 Tezos, edition of 8, The Hangover. And big shout out and thank you to Relax for sending me this. And this looks like a raver of sorts, Chemical Youth, and a digital painting by Relax. So big shout out and thank you. And of course, what was I going to say? Of course, Relax has supported this program. That's actually what I was going to say. Thank you for all the tweets and everything. So a cool painting here, and playing with different kind of textures here and nice brushwork. So thank you for all the comments, the retweets, and everything. Chemical Youth, cool title. And Sumi Reyusi, also from Digital Native series Love or Kill, which really, I'll show you in a second, really reminded me of a certain painting by Magritte, digital painting and collage. So here, almost like this 1940s type, and it seems like the culprit is here. Interesting painting over here. And that's kind of a trope that Sumi Reyusi likes to do, these kind of paintings and paintings. Interesting color. And then we see the kind of blood of the victim here. And Love or Kill. So interesting piece in that work. And it totally reminded me of this work here by Magritte. And here is the person here. What's super interesting about this Magritte work in particular for me is all of the neutral expressions here. Very surreal, right? And neutral, neutral, neutral. Even the face here, neutral. This, which is interesting. I mean, again, remember the death of affect, that Ballard idea where all of a sudden all our emotions are, we no longer feel anything. The greatest casualty of the 20th century was the death of affect, our capacity to feel. Well, you almost have that here in the expressions, that neutrality. There's no expression, there's no emotion in this work. So, yeah, what is this called? The Menaced Assassin. And so I found one of those on Wikipedia here. Kind of reminds me, it just screamed to me, actually, this work here. Very interesting piece by Magritte, enigmatic. The Lonely Sail is Getting Greener. This is by Yuri J., also from the Digital Native series here, curated by Unknown Collector. And there's Unknown Collector, I think. That is awesome on the phone. And kind of a newer element that we're seeing in Yuri J.'s work is often this kind of foreground objects to, like, you can look at this. So you have the coffee cup, you have the phone, maybe it's the artists themselves kind of looking on this scene. And then you have like familiar imagery, like the piano, maybe not the sailboat or the, or what looks like a parking, gateway or something for a parking lot. We do recognize the octopus, but then look at, this is what I wanted to highlight though. And then there's almost a Leonardo reference. Vitruvian Man, almost, but maybe that's something different. But this is what I wanted to point out is look at the enormous amount of space between the phone and what looks like an ironing table at the very end of this composition and all these kind of blocks. And I mean, it's classic Yuri J., this almost distortion of space inside this interior. And again, we see it with make the outline and then just filling it in with different patterning. We see it with this bed that's stretched out. We see it with the floor, the different walls, the sailboat, like it's all over. The cup, okay, the outline is made, now we can fill it in. It's almost like the outlines are made in Photoshop on different layers and then afterwards are maybe removed, I'd be tempted to think. So just another cool work by Yuri J. Ricano, St. Pepsi. So interesting work here, playing with consumption and soda pop again, and almost like this halo of Pepsi. So fascinating work. Edition of 10 sold out at 5 Tezos from Ricano. And check this out, Helix by Neurocolor. I thought this was super interesting. As we see this kind of classical imagery here. Not sure who this is. This is a very familiar bust, though. Not sure if this is Roman or Greek. And this almost, we have some spinal cords, which is pretty cool. Interesting flashing in the background. And you can tell, excuse me, and you can tell this figure here, it's in a classical pose. Because at first it kind of looks Egyptian, but then you see the way the legs are, where the weight is on one leg and then the other is a little bit bent. That is a classical Greek statue move. That is what's called contrapposto. That whole where the weight on one leg and the other kind of half bent, and then you see like the shifting. This is Greek classical statue composition, but the head is not familiar. And the Renaissance artists like Michelangelo just loved that and totally basically lifted the whole contrapposto way of composition, that naturalism, really. Fascinating work from Neurocolor. And here is, of course, Marcelo Pinel, also from that exhibition, the Digital Native exhibition by Unknown Collector. So kind of a fun, lighthearted work by Marcelo Pinel. It's kind of nice to see just like something kind of more lighthearted even. Is 'cause the other works are so profound and intense. It's fun to see like a pool and just people hanging out. Here's like on an office chair in the pool. Pretty hilarious. I mean, we do still have like the classic, here's the Greek, entrance to the Greek temple, which is pretty amazing, which goes to this kind of, beautiful area there. And the sea in the background, people having fun in the summer. I love it. The magical garden of virtual deities. Again, it's great to see these artists juxtaposed in a collection, and it's going to be fascinating to see what all this art goes for. Bite by Bit, In Love, and I mean, what does this remind you of? I'll tell you what it reminded me of. And I thought, again, we're kind of back to this MoMA 2.0. It just reminded me of MoMA 1.0, Robert Indiana's Love. And of course, we've seen this outside many museums. I think they actually had this outside of the Art Gallery of Ontario in Toronto when I lived there. We've all seen this work many times, so it's funny to see the bite by bit, almost like the modern version here, in Love, using retro tools, PC Paint. Here's another work by Bite by Bit. Again, playing with the 3-letter titles here, Zut, using KidPix. And again, I love this idea of taking the user interface here, as we've been discussing, of this retro program and incorporating it into the work as a element of almost a framing device of the work. And it adds a whole other kind of meta layer to understanding, what might be just a simple pixel art penguin. Kind of adds a whole other kind of feel to it. Stamp editor. So very cool. And mech.txt with a beautiful work here. Morning practice. I mean, this is beautiful, kind of what looks like a winter work. It's winter in Indonesia, where mech.txt is based. Michael Micasso. I don't think they have snow in Indonesia, as far as I understand, but pretty beautiful work and beautiful dithering, again, handcrafted pixel art. And here is Kim Asendorf, Monogrid 7A. So let me just hit play here. Interesting pixel art, abstract animation. I mean, look at how intense that is. Again, MoMA 2.0 here. So very fun and just very cool. Speeding along through our episode here, Slava 3 and save structure, data save structure. So almost kind of could hang well with Demon Ego's recent work here. Just some nice dithering. It's almost like it's the same size of, or similar size of composition in terms of pixel art. Like maybe this is 400 by 400, for example. So just another cool work, kind of a variation on Slava's other work, which was, and of course we know a lot of Slava's work from the 1-bit kind of black and white works. So adding some color here. Purchase details in my Twitter account. Interesting. This is, DJ Kuro sent me this artist, 0x Art, who sells for a lot of money, like 3-4 ETH. And just kind of reminds me of Rip Cash. I'm not sure if that's the same artist or probably different, but kind of similar kind of vibe, that black and white and kind of almost like a colored black there, like a matte black. That is 0 Art and 0x, and just a cool work here. And so let's continue. And here is some of their other work. Let me just show you. Look, 3.3 ETH. I mean, that's like, these days, that's like close to $7,000 for those that might not know. These works are selling for around $7,000. This one maybe $3,500. So big money being made here, $5,000. Interesting older works here, different kind of style. And start at 0.18 ETH. Shall we just very quickly check what date that was? Because I've never seen this artist before. January 27th. So this person maybe is fairly new and is doing pretty fabulously. So things can happen fast in this business. Here's McRenders with a really cool work. I missed it the other day. And kind of starts with the Milky Way, as you're going to see here. And then you kind of see the sun rising. Interesting treatment of the mountains here. And then some dithering over here. So just interesting piece. The Mountains May Dream Yet. And Notorious Man XTZ, Me, My Friends, and Memories. So trademark super horizontal work here. Dithered mountains, almost looks like a haze here, or maybe that's sea out there, but cool. Maybe it's the reflection of the mountains on the sea. Cool work, looking off into the distance with almost like a pet tiger or cat here. Cool work. Continuing on, Daniel W. Judith Beheading Holofernes Redux. Let's actually very quickly look that up here. And actually, this is selling for 3 Tezos, by the way, an edition of 10. Let's just see if we can find the original of that. Here it is, and it's by Caravaggio. It is Caravaggio. I thought it was another artist. I'm sure there are many different versions of this. Yeah, I mean, as you can see here, a very classic work here. I mean, it's pretty intense. This is Caravaggio's. Yeah, that screams Caravaggio. And yeah, so it looks like that is the work here. exactly. So Caravaggio is the source. I mean, gorgeous, though. Like, and I mean, Daniel W. has, and it's almost like there's Daniel W. looking on this scene. This is part of a whole series of works that are, I guess we could call them pastiches or remixing classic artworks from art history. So Redux here from Daniel W. Strange Thing picked this up, by the way. He had a nice comment on it too. Collected this dope piece yesterday, a new favorite in my personal collection. A one of one from Daniel W. Continuing on, interesting illustrator here, Eyes, Teeth, Flesh, who I'd never seen before. And just interesting work here. I mean, it looks like gums and teeth and like cybernetics. I mean, pretty wild on super rare. Interesting illustrator. Reserve of 0.69 ETH. And this was minted July 12th. And here's just some of their other work. Amygdala, Chaos Engine, Synaptic Labyrinth. So kind of biological technology combination here. Interesting artist. And here's Seba Sestero. And I think we've seen their work before because I recognize these colors. And I also recognize just the, again, the palette, the composition. I think we've looked months ago at this artist's work. So a whole bunch of people, a crowd of people, and then some kind of distortions in the middle here, stretched out and larger figures. Just interesting work. Here's another interesting illustrator. So this is a work in progress here. Let me get to the original. A palette box, also known as Bianca, who is also on Super Rare. Let's let this load up. A wild kind of, semi-surreal work. I mean, this almost reminds me of the cupcake and hot dog artist. I wonder if they're the same person. Excuse me. And so just interesting kind of work here with the pool, kind of palm trees, modern living, but kind of surreal at the same time. So, and finally, yeah, here's the work in progress here. So interesting. And of course, Retro Manny, big shout out. Retro Man issue number 1. And yeah, I mean, it looks almost like, I don't know if you know Valiant Comics back from the 90s. Jim Shooter, the great editor-in-chief of Marvel, from probably, if I had to guess, like 1977 or 75 to maybe 80, 85, 86, before he was kind of muscled out. Jim Shooter, it kind of reminds me of, he came back with Valiant Comics in the 90s, and this looks like it would fit right in to a Jim Shooter type of universe. And of course, Jim Shooter, if you know the X-Men from the 70s, Chris Claremont, John Byrne, hired Frank Miller as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid and brought him onto Daredevil. David Mazzucchelli took over. I mean, it was a real golden age in Marvel. He was kind of a second Stan Lee, and the industry never treated him very well, Jim Shooter. Maybe it's a personal issue, like maybe he wasn't very good at politics, because he was muscled out of Valiant too, interestingly. Then he started Defiant Comics, appropriately titled, and then I think that didn't fly. And then he started another thing. Super talented guy though. And again, so here's Retro Manny with a cool comic book of Retro Man. So we'll see if there's more coming from the Retro Man universe. Maybe someone should send this to Jim Shooter and ask him to write something. He's in retirement. I mean, if I ran Marvel, I would be bringing back Jim Shooter. I'd be like, is he available? What does he need for money? Can we bring back Jim Shooter? Just give him full reign. You recognize the artist. Smonter is back, super prolific. Dude, Fridge is Empty. And just another really cool angled composition here. There's the wine. Empty fridge. It's not completely empty. There are a couple of eggs, half a bottle of wine, and a carrot. That's enough for today. Sounds like roommate living to me. Smonter, available edition of 20 for 3 Tezos. Cool. Turkarak. I picked up this piece. It was only 10 Tezos Sunday morning, and I thought this was just another classic by Turkarak. These party girls coming home after, bright outside. This could be Berlin after a big night of partying here and just kind of yawning and ready for bed. And using Turkarak's kind of very rough I don't want to call it a new style, but looser style that they're playing with, almost a little bit more painterly than the previous illustrations, a lot rougher. And it's great to see and very interesting. A one of one, Sunday morning. And here's another work, almost reminiscent of Daniel W. a little bit, Wessel, who I've never seen before. This is an open edition. Now it's 20 Tezos, and 20 have sold. And let's just see. I mean, I looked at their other work. They use this kind of user interface compositional style, and I think it's actually super cool. Really interesting. So nice to stumble across their work. Fidget Center, behind the scenes, Wessel 23. And Burka Bayram, FOMO overdose. I missed this too. Panic at the social media. And of course, there's the Threads logo from Instagram and Twitter looking on. And I guess this is the cloud also looking on where these all exist. And there's you and me wandering back and forth, wondering where do we go? So just kind of interesting. 50 Tezos on secondary, 45 editions have been minted. I think that was open edition maybe, and available for 2 Tezos. Maybe it wasn't an open edition, just an edition of 45. Cool work. And Itchy and Scratchy here from Kyle Flemmer, who I've never seen before, Love Bomb. So a nice just kind of quote of Itchy and Scratchy cartoon from The Simpsons, and beautifully processed here using analog video gear. So just interesting work, and 3 minted in an open edition at 3 Tezos each. So a bit of an undiscovered talent here. Kyle Fleming. I found this super interesting. Kind of had a Hasdrubal waffle flash here. The GIF flashing really reminded me of waffle, as well as the, or Kujeb, and also just like the rough digital textures here. GM to the 5 people present, Suisoichi. So interesting work, kind of obscure in a beautiful way. If my art doesn't captivate you, my humor will. So just a wild kind of work here. This is Nuggeteer, I believe Dither and Nuggeteer working together here. And you see a scoreboard of sorts with the car underneath, and maybe this is the driver. And of course, using Dither's super cool retro TV here. So the series continues. The gallery will need to be extended. Got to get back. And again, this is 10 Tezos, sold for 5 Tezos on primary, edition of 20. Aitzo with a super cool work, kind of reminiscent of what you'd see in the Modern Furniture series. Nice, cool retro phone, beautifully celebrated with this nice little kind of feedback delay here. And just gorgeous, super rich colors from Aitzo. So let's see when this is minted. Renki with a super just rich work here. See if we can make this bigger. Just this guy walking. And again, it almost looks like a tightrope, but really it's just a vector here, this line in the middle. And all of this great, just kind of digital feedback. It's beautiful. Just wonderful for the eyes here. Edition of 10 for 12 Tezos, 1 available and 1 available for 13, Beppu. And LB with another analog video work with some really nice color in it. And it had a cool title too, I Still Live Here. Edition of 9 for 7 Tezos. There are 9 left, so still waiting to sell one here from LB. Analog video gear. Lena Eckert with a really interesting piece. The Planet Area, a symphony of colors and cosmic melodies, a celestial ballad sung by a planet, captivating all who encounter its enchanting tune. Let's see if we can see it. Right, and it's almost like frost on a windshield here, spreading upwards. So, looks like a portrait of the planet. Kind of freezing over a little bit here, so interesting video work there. Excuse me. Lucas Ox with some rainbow colors here as well. Rainbow Highway, great title. Edition of 8 for 770. And just kind of a cool work here, which if I hang in the same room as that other work. Generative Landscapes, part of a generative landscape series from Lucas Ox. And another kind of interesting work here by Not a Number, and this one, again, so nice colors here. And again, so not just JavaScript code, this also uses GIMP so maybe for the color. And I think the JavaScript code is the dithering. P5JS generated dither and GIMP. So nice combination, 1 of 1, sold out. Lil Code. So I've never heard of Lil Code, but I thought this was pretty cool abstract animation here. And nice gradients coming in and out. Kind of hard to piece together what's going on, but just kind of beautiful. It's part of the charm. And Dr. Version with another cool work. And again, we see this idea of taking the outlines and just filling those outlines with different patterning. Here it'd be like different video effects. And this is quite beautiful. I have to say, like all of these beautiful, rich textures here. And kind of overwhelming when you see everything going at different speeds and just kind of masked out here. And these kind of structures here, something very surreal about this work. Of course, Dr. Version loves Roberto Matta. So maybe there's a Matta influence in here somewhere. Wall, edition of 13 for 10 Tezos. And Kudu Kola, who I believe does some illustrations, looks like is experimenting with some, sampled brushwork, it seems like. And this seems like a kind of an ice landscape at kind of 45-degree angle with a couple of cabins here in the middle, maybe a cave. Ice Island. So interesting work, a 1 of 1 for 11 Tezos from Kudu Kola. And the isolationist with the work, breaking the frame, almost looks like there's some collage here, almost of Japanese newspaper style, and another often does a portrait kind of style of a person, the outline of a person, and here it looks like the frame. Interesting work, breaking the frame, edition of 20 for 33 Tezos. There's one left. And another gorgeous work by Bosca Grazias. Join photo collage. Again, big shout out to the fam. Look at how beautiful this is. And that looks like St. Peter, that artwork, that cycle. What is the name of that artist? I think it starts with a T. Early Renaissance artist. Beautiful. That's what it's called simultaneous narrative, when multiple scenes are in the same style, in the same picture plane in Renaissance art. So a very famous piece, beautifully juxtaposed with what looks like maybe the family or old family photos, these great negatives and everything. So again, big shout out to Bosque Gracias out of Argentina. Beautiful, beautiful work. Only 3 Tezos, edition of 10, and there are 3 left. Get it while you can. Connected, so I think this is Random Girl 4K, 30 clones who likes to use CGI. And so just interesting work here, almost like this matrix grid underneath and a blurred out landscape as the bottom layer. I mean, just pretty interesting work here. Reserve of only 0.05 ETH. Interesting. John Cates, glitch artist. The artificially illustrated glitch Western primer for machine learners. Great title, great subtitle. And interesting, unique glitches of, again, playing with the Western, Southwest kind of cowboy vibe. And yeah, that is 10 Tezos, edition of 20, and there are 8 left. And Graphica PNG, also from the Digital Native series, Fear and Laughing. And so playing again with some bathroom objects, toilet, and just random sort of things, candles, figures, kind of surreal landscape here. Again, Graphica uses AI, collage, and digital painting, if I'm not mistaken. So cool artist, again, we'll see what happens. And here's another one from the Digital Native series, Imaginarium. Beautiful work by Venta. It looks like Venta in the studio making work with Venta's work on the walls. Isn't that great? And even the sun in the sky in the ceiling. I mean, beautiful. And so kind of a different kind of work. I mean, what's kind of fun, we talk about how different platforms attract different kinds of works. And I feel like Object One is inspiring artists to kind of stretch things a little bit, push things a little further. This is not a typical Venta work. Like, make them, it kind of inspires people to make something kind of special, as we saw with Ed Marola's work there to begin the episode. And I feel like we're seeing that here with Venta. I mean, nice work. People don't want to let Unknown Collector and Object One down. Marina Amadova, psionic synesthesia, is a sense that combines telepathy with sensory perception. Individuals with this ability can hear, see, taste, or smell the thoughts, ideas, or concepts of others, translating mental activity into vivid sensory experiences. Great definition there. So, very cool work here. It looks like a raw AI work by Marina Amadova. Edition of 20 for 8 Tezos, and wrapping up here, Quilanina with a physical work, acrylic and oil painting, and inspired by the tarot card of Justice, the Justice card. So, I mean, fantastic red sky and the sunflower. Again, making this stuff look easy. These are big leaps here in the red clouds and the pink clouds over top. I mean, again, kind of visionary work here in the eyes and the dress, making it look very easy, and it must be a beautiful physical work here. 4 Tezos, edition of 25, 15 left. And Tyler Hobbs of Fidenza fame, Delicate Futures watercolor on paper. I want to say this reminds me of Bridget Riley, but I think that might be the wrong artist. Interesting minimal work here from Tyler Hobbs, Delicate Futures. You wonder if art matter is involved in the painting of this. So more details would be great. Yeah, is this real watercolor or gen art? So not sure here. There it is in the frame. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Probably generative. Probably generative made and then executed by art matter, if I had to guess. Naked Galena, Uncomfortable Freedom, just another really nice painting with some, looks like a photo of a painting with like a collage thing on top. I think there's some digital elements in here too. I mean, pretty nice work. Uncomfortable Freedom, collage from oil painting and digital drawing. So it's what I like about this especially is it's hard to tell what's digital and what's not, which adds added interest. Here it looks like you see the paper because it contrasts with the white, and then that looks like the color of a little bit darker paper, but maybe it's all getting blended together maybe with some digital. I mean, interesting work. 1 of 1 for 60 Tezos. And I thought this was hilarious. This is Walk. The first 10 Mark Zuckerberg's physical spray painted tweets are available through my eBay online store. 4 already sold out. So Walk continues to work the eBay side of things and seems to be doing quite well. Never thought I'd be on a boat. I mean, it's hilarious too, this whole series. I think it's brilliant. 175 million. Playing with TweetDeck, I think it's pretty neat. A good day. This is neat. So that is hilarious. And as you can see here, 2009. These are the first 10 Mark Zuckerberg tweets. Brilliant. And I love how it's all dripping and everything. Another artist from Kristen Hjellgerdy Gallery, Rebecca Brodsky's, an incredible new series for our Armory show. And it does look pretty incredible here. Almost like these acupuncture red pins are being pinned into the subject here. And, you know, just an outline for a shirt matching these 2 walls here on the side. I mean, very psychological work. Again, almost Magritte-esque when there's that work with the big rock in a small room being constrained. Kind of has that same claustrophobia. Interesting work. This was sent to me by Runtune, Osamu Kobayashi. Give them a follow. Interesting abstract work here. This is oil on canvas with the Mindy Salman Gallery. And just kind of an interesting abstract work here. Interesting textures here too. And look, you almost get a window into the style. So that's how they get these kind of interesting squeegee-like brush strokes here. Very interesting. And that is your show, my friends. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, take care.